Hi, I'm Lyn Coffin, and I'm going to be talking about vegetarianism, but I wanted to show you this. It just came like 5 minutes ago. This is my, I think, 34th book, but it's my first novel, and I thought there were other hoops to jump through before this appeared, and here it is. It's pretty amazing to hold it in my hand. So, just to acknowledge that. It's from Adelaide Books, and it is available on Amazon. Okay, vegetarianism. I'd like to start with two ancient quotes and one modern one. The ancient quote, one is by Hippocrates. Over 2,000 years ago, he said, "Let food be thy medicine." The other is a Chinese proverb that says, "He who goes to the doctor and takes medicine without considering his diet wastes his doctor's time." Then for the half of a modern quote, this is something I saw on a signboard, and the first half goes, "Animals are our friends." Okay. Before I begin the substance of my talk, let me tell you my biases and presumptions. I believe it's better, more ethical to be vegetarian. I think and believe most people, most educated people, most people at University House believe this as well. Yet out of 170 plus people, only perhaps 5 are vegetarian. Can both of these facts be true? Yes. How so? Well, I have felt that vegetarianism, even veganism, were the way to go for years. And yet I continued to eat meat. Why is that? Many possible reasons: habit, association, refusal to open the floodgates. If you even start to think about the animal you're eating as an animal you know, you're beginning what might be a challenging and life-altering journey. Wait, I'm not sure that's true. Decades ago, my family and I were traveling west from Long Island to San Francisco. We stopped to eat somewhere in the Great Plains, maybe Nebraska, at a steakhouse. There were cow heads above each booth, and the heads were named. There was something like a sign under each head. "This is Bill. You may be eating Bill today. Bill was born," etc., etc. The heads and the signs made me feel very uncomfortable. Other diners did not seem to be upset. Back to my topic. Why am I giving this talk? I'm giving this talk because I think it's important to nudge people in what I believe to be the right direction. To move in the direction of vegetarian or vegan is a move designed to promote somebody's health and the health of the planet. Should I go back?
Okay.
I designed this talk as a series of short answers to questions people have for me and other vegetarians. First, what is the difference between vegetarians and vegans? Vegetarians don't eat animals, vegans don't eat animals or animal products. All the dairy, milk, butter, cheese, eggs, but also honey and gelatin. I have a side note here. When I started this talk, I thought gelatin came from horses' hooves, but I found out that's false. The collagen in gelatin does come from boiling the bones and the hides of animals processed for their meat. It's usually cows and pigs, but hooves consist of a different protein, keratin, which can't produce gelatin. Where am I on the vegetarian-vegan scale? I'm a vegetarian and semi-vegan. On the food continuum, which I'll show you here, I would say I'm a B+, more or less. F is if you eat fried animal products. D, you eat animals and animal products. C-, you eat junk food like cake and cookies. I eat dessert and sometimes those delicious scones here. B- is plant-based junk foods, which includes veggie burgers, which I eat regularly. A-, you eat more processed plant-based foods like the alternative milks, white rice, and bread. A is minimally processed plant foods. Puffed whole grains, oil-free chips, white whole grain bread, nuts, seeds, avocados. A plus is the whole plant foods corn, oats, barley, fruits, legumes, avocados, leafy green vegetables, etc. I have given up milk and butter, but not yet cheese or eggs, though I've cut way down on my consumption of them. I've given up drinking milk as itself. I've given up on buying milk, but not given up on eating food that contains milk. On my birthday last week, I asked my son to take me to Cafe Flora. This is an all-vegetarian restaurant. I ordered decaf coffee with oat milk and vanilla. It was delicious. I also like soy milk, which is in our U-House kitchen, available upon request. Oat milk is coming shortly. Yesterday, I tried oat milk by itself and liked it. When mixed with soda water, it tastes like the vanilla sodas I loved when I was a kid. How did I become a vegetarian? I started on the road to vegetarian many, many years ago, even decades, in my 20s. My favorite meat was leg of lamb. One day, I was about to dig into this when my brain suddenly went, hold on. Leg of lamb? I'm eating a leg of a lamb, as in Mary had a little one and Sherry Lewis's lamb chop, and I stopped eating lamb. The second meat I stopped eating was veal. It was a lot later. I was visiting a farm in Canada and saw the baby calves chained to dog houses, unable to walk. Because people prefer unmuscled meat, it's softer. The cruelty of that seemed unbearable. Lamb and veal, two baby animals, petting zoo animals. For many years I was 80 to 90% vegetarian, and it was only when I came here and was offered vegetarian options at every dinner that I was able to succeed in becoming a complete vegetarian. I say succeed. Again, I think to be a vegetarian is better than to be an omnivore. I think it's better, I would say I know it's better, for two reasons: health reasons and ethical reasons. And not just ethical reasons, but two types of ethical reasons. Ethical because of one, the horrible way most animals we eat are killed. I think of that as personal ethics. And ethical too, because the raising of livestock, especially cows, beef, contributes significantly to global warming. I think of that as global ethics. Let's take those three things one by one. Health. Health. I raised my daughter as a semi-omnivore. We ate a lot of chicken and some seafood. She became a vegetarian when she was still in high school and has lived her life as one. She is raising two boys, currently 5 and 3. She and her husband are totally vegetarian and very healthy. There is a member of this community, U-House, that has never eaten meat. Before we talk about the benefits, though, let's talk about the objections. Number one objection: don't vegetarians have trouble eating enough protein? Not at all. If you are eating enough food as a vegetarian or vegan to maintain your weight, you almost certainly are ingesting enough protein. In high-income regions like North America and Europe, people also consume more protein than they need to meet their dietary requirements. Here's a little chart about where will I get my proteins. And it shows you a woman needs about 46 grams and a man about 56. And vegetarians get them from lentils, black beans, tofu, bagel, peanut butter, veggie burger. In doing research, I tried to find anti-vegetarian articles. Most of them fell into the category of the next two texts. One was written in 2013 by William McCaskill. I'm going to spend some time on this because it is typical of the anti-vegetarian stuff you read on the internet. The title is Vegetarians Live Longer, but it's not because they don't eat meat. McCaskill attacks, in a very interesting way, both premises of vegetarianism, health and ethics. He begins with a scientific statement, correlation is not causation. Then says, vegetarians live 6 to 9 years longer, but they are also more likely to exercise, be married, smoke less, and all of this contributes to a longer life. In other words, vegetarianism is part of a healthy life, but instead of crediting vegetarianism, he discredits it on that score. Now McCaskill moves to the ethical side of vegetarianism and says, should you be vegetarian or at least a meat reducer? Absolutely, he answers his own question. In the hidden confines of factory farms, animals live in conditions of suffering that no decent human being could sanction. Eating a single egg means that one hen was locked into a small cage in darkness, barely able to move for 24 hours. Was it worth it in exchange for the cost of going free range or even switching to porridge? It seems pretty difficult to justify. So he sounds very sympathetic to vegetarianism. He kind of lulls you into it. But for those concerned with animal suffering, he says, touting the health benefits of vegetarianism, as many vegetarian advocacy organizations do, can not only be misleading, it risks being downright dangerous. Wait a minute, how can it be dangerous when he's just said we want to switch? Then he goes on, by far the most likely culprit for the health costs of eating meat is red meat, rich in saturated fat and carnitine. But in terms of animal suffering per calorie, red meat pales in comparison with chicken, eggs, and fish, where the animals live in far worse conditions and where dramatically fewer calories are produced per animal. And he concludes, so if, by promoting the health benefits of meat reduction, consumers cut down on red meat and compensate with chicken, eggs, and fish, then the vegetarian advocate might ethically have done more harm than good. He says, some good-seeming actions can achieve very little and some can even backfire. Promoting the health benefits of vegetarianism might be one. If you're bothered by the idea of killing animals for food, then going vegetarian might seem like an obvious response. But if you want your diet to kill as few animals as possible, then eschewing meat is actually quite an indirect and sometimes even counterproductive strategy. Now, the logic of this escapes me. So he subtly slides from eating red meat to eating chicken and then somehow gets you to the point where he says, if you want to kill fewer animals, maybe vegetarianism isn't the best way to do that. That's crazy. The second anti-vegetarian piece is a little more subtle. A quote, being vegetarian isn't always healthy. Plant-based diet may raise the risk of heart disease. That was the headline of the Daily Mail. We go, what? The article goes on. A U.S. study found a vegetarian diet based on less healthy food options, such as refined grains, could increase the risk of heart disease. My only answer to that is one wonders what a diet heavy in bad meat would do. So he's giving you as an example of a vegetarian diet, a bad vegetarian diet, and says that might increase your heart disease. Yeah, but a bad meat-eating diet would increase it even more. My favorite story was about an ad that used to circulate in schools from the Cattlemen's Association comparing hamburger to another common food. It made much of the fact that it was superior in that it had every single nutrient in greater quantity than the competitor. and the competitor had more sugar. It sounded like a health food, but then they revealed that the competitor was a 12-ounce can of Coke. I'm moving moving the cup, please, so I can see. So these two articles are typical of anti-vegetarian texts. Basically, all the science is on the side of vegetarian, and all the ethics too. A side argument mounted against vegetarianism is about behalf of milk and its contribution to our calcium intake. All whole foods contain calcium, but do we need higher amounts found in dairy? A lot of us here are worried or at least aware of the dangers in osteoporosis. This comes, the theory goes, from lack of calcium. But when they did a study at Harvard of hip fractures, they learned that animal protein creates metabolic acidosis. It draws calcium as a buffer from the bone to neutralize excess acids. And as fat is taken out of milk, for example, it becomes higher in protein, and this speeds up metabolic acidosis. So drinking low-fat milk as a preventative measure against osteoporosis is like smoking as a way to prevent lung cancer. Okay, enough of the negatives. How about the positives for the health? So this is a little chart that shows you about plant-based diets. It shows the benefits of eating a plant-based diet. And I'm going to have to take it down to do it, but it's 50%, 20% a vegetarian diet lowers your risk of heart disease by 20%. Vegetarians live an average of 8 years longer than non-vegetarians. The average cholesterol level of a vegetarian is 161 compared to 210 in non-vegetarians. And vegetarians have a lower risk of death related to cancers, heart problems, and the like. And you see here that 50% reduction in men and a 30% reduction in women, probably because women's risk is lower to begin with. Personal ethics. The horrible way animals are treated in food production is too horrific to describe. Battery cages are small wire cages where about 95% of laying hens spend their entire life. Each hen is given about 67 to 76 square inches of space. This sheet of paper measures 94 square inches. So you have a chicken imprisoned in a cage smaller than this piece of paper. To get a sense of a hen's life in a battery cage, imagine spending your entire life in a wire cage the size of a bathtub with 4 other people. You wouldn't be able to move, so your muscles and bones would deteriorate. Your feet would become lacerated. You would go insane. And that's precisely what happens to laying hens. In the United States, roughly 9 billion chickens, pigs, and other farm animals are consumed annually. And the vast majority of them are abused in ways that would warrant felony cruelty to animals charges were dogs or cats the victims. But 3 systems are particularly cruel. Gestation crates for pregnant pigs, veal crates for calves, and battery cages for laying hens. These 3 are illegal all across Europe, and I think it's past time for the United States and Canada to follow suit. In 2008, California voters overwhelmingly approved Proposition 2, which required egg-laying hens, gestating pigs, and calves raised for veal to have enough room to stand up and fully extend their limbs. As of now, there are legal battles going on against farrowing crates. 9 states outlaw gestation crates. Washington is not one. What about free-range chickens? I found out, it sounds great. I'm going to get free-range chickens. But all that is required for free range is for there to be a small door, or even sometimes just a window, from a warehouse jammed with chickens, where the chickens can either go out into a small square of dirt without grass, without bugs, or just stick their head out this small square, and now they're called free-range chickens, even though they're jammed into this warehouse for their whole lives. I have a quote here. One of the thinkers on the vegetarian website says, "Humane meat is an oxymoron because an animal was killed to produce that meat." That's something to think about. Killing is not normally compassionate, kind, or done with consideration for whatever you're killing. So it's really not valid to call any animal product humane. I think here of the death penalty and the things that they have with the electric chairs and how people have suffered when the whole attempt was made to make the killing humane, and yet it turned out not to be humane. Okay, global ethics. Reining in climate change won't require everyone to become vegetarian or vegan, or even to stop eating beef. If ruminant meat consumption in high-consuming countries declined to about 50 calories a day, or 1.5 burgers per person per week, about half of current U.S. levels, it would nearly eliminate the need for additional agricultural expansion and associated deforestation, even in a world with 10 billion people. Gideon Eshel, a geophysicist at Bard Center, and Pamela Martin, assistant professor of geophysics at the University of Chicago, have calculated the benefits that would occur if Americans were to reduce beef consumption by even 20%. Doing this would decrease our greenhouse gas emissions as substantially as if we exchanged all our cars and trucks for Priuses. It takes 80% of cleared land to feed the livestock, and worldwide emissions of methane have hit the highest levels on record. The thing to remember here, the distinction between grass-fed and feedlot beef. Some animal humanists try to emphasize to get grass-fed beef, but grass-fed beef is slaughtered in the same manner as feedlot beef. Cows are likely to be skinned while they're still alive and conscious. They're butchered and have their feet cut off while they're still breathing. Livestock, more than transportation, contributes to global warming. I have some recommended reading if you'd like to follow up or check out the facts here. One is called Forks Above Knives. It's a movie which I found really interesting. There's another one called Eating Ourselves Alive. The China Study is a book about vegetarianism in Asia. It's quite scholarly and convincing. And then there's a 2018 film called Dominion. It's about animal slaughtering in Australia. It's one of the most shocking films I've ever seen. I was only able to watch a little bit of it. Okay, what do I want you to get out of this talk? People are generally dissuaded from individual action with the argument that one meal or one vegetarian choice won't make a difference. I remember the fable of a man who's walking along the beach after a storm. Starfish are littering the beach by the thousands. He's walking along, he comes across a starfish, and he throws it in the water. A naysayer sees him and says, "Do you really think your little effort can make any difference?" For answer, the man picks up another starfish and throws it into the water. "I made a difference for that one," he says. So I have a list here of what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that in the future, when you find yourself not liking the meat options terrifically, then instead of settling for a not very appealing meat entree, you'll choose the vegetarian option. If you're a meat eater but want to take first steps toward healthier, more ethical eating, you might give up one meat and try to stick with not eating that for a while. I would hope you might want to give up one of the baby animals first, either lamb or veal. 3. Even if you don't want to give up a meat at all, you could try a butter substitute or an alternate milk, say soy milk or oat milk, or we have Smart Balance now. Try that butter substitute. 4. Try eating half portions. Even if you love meat, there's an awful lot of meat going back to the kitchen uneaten after meals. You can save animal lives just by eating less. 5, and I'm not so sure about this one, but I would hope that you might praise vegetarians. If they're at the table eating with you, think of your encouragement of them, of us, as helping us and therefore the planet, sort of like feeding a monk who's on retreat. And 6, this is a little bit radical, try naming the meat on your plate. Think of that pork chop as Priscilla. Think of the steak as Stanley. It might help you cut down on your meat intake. I'm not sure how many vegetarians we have at University House. I know of one lifetime vegetarian, another total vegetarian who I have not spoken to, a couple of almost vegetarians, and myself. If you are vegetarian or vegan, please let me know of your existence and any food preferences you have. I am working with Dan Palmer, our chef, to widen the number of vegetarian choices. I want to note here that plant-based food is growing at a very high rate, although it's starting from a low baseline. McDonald's has a plant-based burger, though I've asked at McDonald's all over Seattle and have yet to find any McDonald's employee who even knew of its existence. Pizza Hut has a plant-based pepperoni pizza. And of course, University House routinely has a Beyond Meat burger, which can be ordered as a substitute entree on most nights. It's very good. And sometimes University House has the Impossible Burger. Last night's delicious vegetarian meatloaf had the crumbles of Impossible Burger in it. I thought it was wonderful. The Impossible Burger is so much like meat, my vegetarian daughter can't eat it. They did a taste test of this burger with real burgers, and it rated a 5. Consumers couldn't tell it from the real burgers. I drove up to Shoreline yesterday and enjoyed a Burger King Impossible Burger. Okay, University House carries Smart Balance, and Dan has to order 1,000 pats of this for a butter substitute, so I hope vegetarians will remember to ask for it. You can order soy milk, oat milk, and next week Dan will be featuring 3 new Whole Foods plant-based entrees based on recipes provided by the Adcocks. As many of you know, I'm a poet, so I thought I would end with an anti-meat eating poem. This is an animal abecedarian. An abecedarian is a poem written with the first letter of every line the next in the alphabet, going from A to Z. When I read it, I'll accentuate the alphabet letter so you can follow along, and I'd be happy to send you a copy if you'd like one. So this is Animal Abecedarian. Animals, believe in us despite our carnage. Don't let liars deceive you. Everywhere we savage them, creatures of fur, fin, feather, mountain, air, and sea, they give us their attention, and we hunt and kill them for their flesh. Our so-called innocence is nothing but ignorance justifying slaughter. We all know how easy it would be, how little it would take to stop the routine murders, acknowledge kinship, to make the world newly nice and oh so much better. We need to stop pulling the legs off quivering lambs, stop chunking pigs into stews, stop turning the wobbly calf under cover of language into veal cordon bleu. We're wrong to zap our fellows with knives, guns, and x-rays. Let's acknowledge our stewardship, sing yes to animals, stop eating meat, and let zoos stand open. And the whole modern quote that I saw on that billboard years ago, animals are our friends. We don't eat our friends. Thanks a lot for listening. With any luck, I'll see you in the dining room.